All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Welcome to the #1 podcast on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Thank whoever brought you here. To my regular listeners, you know how I get down right to the point, and we are all about innovative teamwork here. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to have my next guest. His name is Austin Holmes, and currently he runs an organization named Publicity for Good. However, before we get there, Austin, I want to give you the microphone for a second because it's not like you just woke up one morning and decided to build this organization. You actually spent time in the Navy, and one of the actual fun facts, the thing that really stuck out to me was you were actually a teammate of the one and only Tim Tebow in high school football. And let me tell
That
you,
coming out early.
this business was built off the lessons I learned on the football field. So I would love it if you can kind of just start there, and then we'll kind of work our way to the organization you run now. So the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, when I was playing with him back in the day, I had no idea what success looked like, and I worked hard, but being on that team with him, and I think 21 of our guys went D1. That was the level of organization that our coaching staff had built there, and of course, he was a huge part of that.
All right.
And looking at the lessons from that, they've carried so much forward in so many things that I've done.
Not only that, but the lens of the way we look at high school football was completely changing. This was before games were on ESPN. It was like, I believe it was
actually, it wasn't before. We were the first.
Yeah, it was the first, right? It was like the new, yeah.
We were the first high school game on ESPN.
That was it. Was it the team Hoover or something like that, right?
Yeah, Hoover, Alabama. That was tough. It was hot.
Yeah, I watched that. I grew up in Maryland. I watched that, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen high school football on national TV. And you're right, it was actually the first one. So, aside from, I don't want to make this a Tebow conversation here, but I do want to know, what was school like for you? Like I said, you decided to go into the Navy, and you decided to do a lot of great things. So, kind of walk us through a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, very boring is probably the way to put it.
Boring's good. I've been to Jacksonville too, so
I enjoyed school. My family is awesome, and it was a relatively standard childhood, if you want to call it that, for a kid from Florida.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did move to North Carolina for a couple of years and then back, which it had its own lessons of uprooting your entire life, and done that a couple times since the Navy. But the huge thing is I liked to learn. I've always enjoyed learning. I liked history. I like business. I really picked that up when I was 19 and loved it as a topic. Even before that, I liked making money. I wasn't these like huge story entrepreneur kids, but I did my little hustling in the schoolyard. So
okay, so you're going through school. You kind of are typical Florida kid, as you say. Where is it now? Do you decide I'm gonna enlist in the Navy? What was that transition like? That is obviously it's kind of the first major decision a lot of young people have to go through, is what's going to happen after high school. So what made you decide to do that?
So I did go to UCF, and what I was missing there was a team. I was just kind of in it for myself. I was really getting my degree to make my parents happy, and it wasn't for me. So between the missing of the championship level team and wanting to do something for myself, to prove to myself of how much I could accomplish, and I wanted to do something that was going to make a difference in the world. I looked at pretty much every special operations program the U.S. has. Ended up going with the Navy first, as far as just not wanting to get stuck in the middle of the country and looking out at a cornfield. No offense, Army guys. Or that, and my eyesight wasn't that great. I've had LASIK since, but so I was qualified in that regard for diver, EOD, and air rescue. And so I actually started off with a diver. Like, I was trying to go diver. It seemed cool. I had seen Men of Honor back in the day, and wanted to go down that path. And I talked to one of the chiefs, the recruiting um, office, and he's like, he was an air rescue guy, so he didn't really have a dog in the fight. And he's like, from what you've told me, EOD is probably where you want to go. It's gonna give you the things that you want, and it's definitely well respected.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of crazy coming from Florida, Florida man,
Right.
crazy blood, I guess. So we're the guys running around in bomb suits, driving robots, blowing stuff up. I loved my job. Wasn't a fan of the bureaucracy though.
So I do want to go back to something that you mentioned because that was a feeling that I personally can resonate with. I did actually play college football, but I was kind of the scout team player, and I tore my ACL the first year. And you're right. When you go to college, actually my second year, I was just a regular student. When you go to college after having played high school football, it is hard to figure out what your purpose is when you don't have that team. So, given what you've learned now, what do you necessarily like? How do you recommend young people navigate that transition? Because as you said, you were going for your parents, you were, just kind of going there for a degree, but the purpose wasn't there. And obviously, that led you to doing some of your work now. How do you kind of advise people who are going through a similar situation or maybe going through a similar situation?
I think you have to look at what you want. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's in so many things in life. If you want to be a doctor, yeah, go to school.
Yes.
I don't think even when I was in school, I didn't think it was as relevant as it was for the baby boomer generation, and that was instilled in us as kids. But there are so many more options now. Uh, if you enjoy school, it's not wrong to go. Like there are absolutely careers where you can study your entire life.
Yeah.
I know both me and Joe Rogan appreciate the archaeology dudes.
Yeah.
So uh, there is a path, but taking the time to figure out what you want is a vital step. Uh, I think that if you're just trying to make money, college is absolutely not the right way to go.
Yeah.
It is a good learning experience. It teaches you a lot. It gives you some credibility, but there's a much faster way, and that's becoming an entrepreneur. I agree with a lot of people out there. It's not for everybody. It's hard. Like if you are going the entrepreneurship route because you think school is hard, like I was able to get through school in college by playing all of the lectures on 2x the night before the tests. And so it's not like I'm not promoting school because I think school is the lesser path. Like school is hard, and you're going to find that you're going to compete against some incredible individuals. Just like having what you want and why you want it is so important. Knowing what you're great at is just as valuable. And Heather, who actually started Publicity for Good a couple of years before I met her,
Mm-hmm.
she had a background in PR, and she had figured out at the ad agency that she was working for that
Mm-hmm.
she was really good at getting people in the media. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've built a business with that because
Right.
she is world class at getting people on TV.
Yeah. Well, you actually beat me too, because I'm glad you mentioned your wife. And previously, when I was listening to you before we were recording, you give her a ton of credit in terms of getting this thing started, and that teamwork element is so important for the listeners. It's so important for everyone to hear. You got to work with people to create something special. And now that you kind of mentioned it, her background in PR, getting people on TV, and then you as someone that was in the Navy, how were you guys able to kind of mesh and figure out what roles would be best for the organization? You were good. Like, what did you take from the Navy? What did she have from PR? And how did you kind of make it into this mesh that was able to work for something that's really good?
Absolutely. First, we made a lot of mistakes,
Yeah, I
and
love it. Yeah,
we're 8 years.
I got to
We're
pause
eight
you
years
because
in.
so many people, and I want to make sure I emphasize this to the listeners. He is every guest I've had, and I've had quite a few. When I kind of pose that question, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is mistakes, mistakes, mistakes. So fail fast, fail often, and if you make your mistakes, keep rolling. It's been validated by so many different people that come on this show. Do not stop. I'm talking to you listeners right now. please. I'm making sure I'm making that point because so many people have come on the show, Austin, and I've kind of posed that thing, and they said I made mistakes. Look where I'm at now. So the floor is yours, man.
I think the follow up to that is just because it was right a week ago doesn't mean it's right today.
Right.
And that's a later failure point of people who get tired. Like that 5-year mark, I felt it. And yeah, going back to how we did it, we got a lot of help. I'm sure this is a common point too of going out and getting help. We had somebody more or less build our systems out for us. This is a couple years in even, but as we were growing, we knew we needed the tools to scale. And the system that we use is a lot like Traction. That's an awesome place to start. You can go get Gino's book. It's $20 or whatever. It's probably $1 at the Goodwill at this point because there's so many of them out there. And that's using a system like that that's really popular. You have a lot of support. You can go find a coach specific for that. I know Grant Cardone has some really good coaching stuff. And obviously depends on your industry. But going out, getting help, like right now we're being mentored by Dave Meltzer, and awesome to hear his.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And I'm getting to the point where I know his answer ahead of time, and it's just like I know what you're saying. Build a community, got it. And he's right. Like every person that's in your life, you can take lessons from. And, you know, there's also the lesson that you have to get some people out of your life. We don't have to worry about that very much, but you know, we've seen it in the community a whole lot. What else did we do to grow and scale? Right, that's the question. We tried a lot of different things. We got help, not just mentors and coaching and the online courses galore, but on our team, we've had a tremendous amount of help getting to where we have in business.
Right. So you mentioned something that, again, is very valuable for people to know is understanding the power of systems. I myself, too, have a coach. I hired a coach. I'm part of a group coaching program. And one of the things he constantly says is your system should be working harder than you. You should be doing what you're great at, and your system should be just rolling and rolling and rolling, just like actually how we met when it comes to Pod Match. For the longest time, this show was just a solo episode show because I wasn't tracking down guests anymore. I got too tired of doing that shit. And Pod Match comes and it allows me to, again, get back to what it is I'm doing and, bring guests on. So as you're in your discovery phase, what did you guys start to realize? Look, I'm good at, I know how to do this well. Let's figure out a way to get a system in place to take care of the other stuff. Any kind of examples in which you can kind of provide there?
Heather is a lot better at the repetitive stuff. And we balance each other out in that way. But if you had doing lead gen, it would never happen. Whereas Heather hasn't hired very many people out of the 100 or so that we've employed over the past 8 years. And most of that's on me. So it's a good test that you can go out, and there's a bunch of free versions, is the DISC profile. It's not a personality test, it's a behavioral profile. So if you take it take it from the perspective of, hey, this is how I act at work, it's a really good way to identify where you should be working. It'll tell you, hey, these roles in a company might be really good. Another one that we used is Wealth Dynamics. This one is not free. I think it's like $100. And it shows you kind of the 4 quadrants that you need to have a successful business. It is very business focused. Because you need the visionary, you need the technician, you need the person who's going to do the accounting. I don't know what the person's called, but it's not me. And so there's a lot of resources that does a lot of that work for you. And I'm sure I haven't done it with AI yet, but I'm sure you can
that's coming.
have AI have it tell you what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Another good kind of tool that you can use to judge what you should and shouldn't be doing is, do you like it and are you good at it?
Mm-hmm.
It should be pretty easy to tell if you like something.
Right.
And when you're doing something 100 times in the business, which is
Mm-hmm.
most things, because it's very repetitive,
Right.
you find out pretty quickly if you enjoy it. Because I do like hiring and interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I love sifting through applications? Not as much.
Right.
So I tend to get help with that.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of order of what you're trying to take off your plate first is going to be what you're bad at and what you don't like. Like, find that stuff and get rid of it. Go
Yeah.
and hire today, even if you're pre-revenue. Find somebody. Find your mom. Find your best friend's
Mm-hmm.
cousin. Whatever it is, get
Yeah.
help and get that stuff off your plate. And you're going to be amazed at how much mental energy you
Yeah.
get back. And for me, that's becoming a huge part of what I do, is
Right.
just thinking about how do we move forward. And I can even say in this moment, I'm a little stuck, and it's super easy when you have this clear vision and you can say, hey, I'm moving forward in this direction. But when you come to those points where you're just, in the day to day, and you know
Mm-hmm.
what the plan is, and you know it's going to take some time, like that's a little rough, honestly, for me,
Mm-hmm.
to not say, hey, this is the next step, because it
Yeah.
doesn't feel as much like we're moving forward. Even though if you look back a month ago, you
Mm-hmm.
can see progress. If you look back 6 months ago,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
so uh, making sure you take time for perspective. Some
Mm-hmm.
friends of ours out in Washington gave us one of the best things of advice of, they take a quarterly trip and just like shut it all off.
Yeah.
Everything. It's harder to do that with kids, but
Yeah.
we've taken a couple trips
Right.
in the past couple of years and just shut it off. And
Mhm.
you come back from that with clarity of vision. As
Yeah.
long as your intentionality is definitely another whole
Yeah.
part of it.
But yeah, that actually part you mentioned about shutting it off is a very valuable piece to it, because you want to be working, you don't want to be in the business too much. You kind of want to make sure you're leveraging certain things, and you can't do it when you're so stuck and knee deep into it. And the other point you made about outsourcing stuff, I actually had another business mentor who, like me, just hates having to post on social media. So he's like, look, eventually I'm going to get a teenage, one of my boys or somebody to do it and just let them roll with it. And I, just like him, couldn't stand it. But then there was Opius clips that I just plug that thing in and it just shoots out all the clips, and I don't really have to look at it at all. So, with that, I do want to make sure we at least get into what Publicity for Good is all about. I want to give you the mic for a second to just talk about who you serve, who's like an ideal client for you, and what's kind of the journey that you take them on and how you fix their problems.
Absolutely. Public relations has been something Heather's been doing for 12 years, and she's done a bunch of different aspects of that. What we focus on is media relations, meaning we get our clients in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's evolved so much over the past 4 years to include podcasts, to include digital article placements. There is so much going on in the industry, and
Yeah.
it's not stopping. Uh,
Huh.
just as much of a change that happened with newspapers over the previous 20 years has happened in the past 5 in PR, because we're seeing that traditional media shift. And I don't see it going away, just like radio never went away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many new opportunities and new ways to reach people. And that's really what it's about. It's about reaching people and getting in front of the people who already know you more, so that they're reminded of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to drive your business forward in a very practical way.
Right.
Uh, it's fun to watch when somebody does a local TV segment and their sales spike for the following hour.
Mm-hmm.
Those little data points are cool. The kind of other services that we offer clients who are working with us on PR that just want a broader communications approach are influencer management and social media.
Mm-hmm.
And then our newest offering is our software. It's in closed beta testing right now with some clients. and it's going to. I like what one of our other mentors has said about it. Of we're aiming to be the Uber of PR.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's a way to make PR service more affordable, because that's the
Right.
number one complaint or objection, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
when we're sales call is like, hey, I can't afford PR because it is expensive. You're paying for somebody's relationships, their
Mm-hmm.
expertise, and their time.
Right.
So just like paying a lawyer, that hourly rate is steep because you're factoring all of those three things
Mm-hmm.
in, along with support, and it takes some coordination.
Right.
So uh, the ideal client that we work with on the agency side is definitely food and beverage. We've expanded into beauty and fashion as well. And
Mm-hmm.
something that goes along with that is personalities. There's a personality associated with most successful brands. And so there is definitely a crossover from personalities into the consumer packaged goods space. And we do a little bit in both because they typically work together. So
Mm-hmm. So aside from, like you mentioned, the financial aspect of it, what would you say is probably the biggest challenge when it comes to working with people? You know, I know there could be situations where folks may have the money, but they don't necessarily have the vision, and they may just say, "Hey, you pay the money, I paid you this, and I expect you to get it done." You know, what are you looking for, or what are some of the objections and things that you go through outside of just the financial aspect that you would want to make sure people know before they reach out to you, or kind of put out there now?
uh, I think every business owner who's been around a little bit knows they need PR. Literally every
Yeah,
Fortune 500 company
absolutely.
has PR. So like they know that it exists, they know that they need it, but they have no idea what it is. And so we
Yes.
have a huge educational gap of
Yeah.
what is PR, and that's and we've done the numbers on sales calls over the past 5 years or whatever of here's the
Hmm.
issues. And number one is the financial aspect. Number two is definitely the knowledge behind it. What are you going to do for me?
Hmm.
And most of the time, this is not every time, most of the time, PR is a long game.
Hmm.
It's building your brand. And that's becoming a popular idea right now, which I really appreciate because I've seen how powerful it is.
Hmm.
Because I've watched Flying Embers go from a small uh, couple distributors in Southern California to literally the leading hard kombucha brand in like 2 years
Right.
because they have the media presence.
Hmm.
And they did a lot of other things, right? The guys there, same guys as founded Kavita, so they know what they're doing.
Right.
Uh, but it's cool to watch a story like that happen.
Okay.
Uh,
So well, go ahead. Go ahead. You have any?
it,
I'll let you finish out your thought.
the core of PR is making sure that you get your message right and getting it out to the people who need to hear it.
Right.
That's simplest way to explain it, I think.
And it is important for you listeners, and it's a lot easier said than done, which is why I'm always telling you, you got to hire somebody to do that aspect of the work, because getting the message right is not easy because of the channels and everything that we've kind of alluded to today. Is there's so many ways of getting in touch with people. There's so many avenues. There's new this, new that, and getting your message right becomes an actual challenge. But I'm telling you from experience, when you get it right and you hire someone that's really going to grill you and get in your ass and say, this is the way you need to be doing it, this is my years of experience, you will nail it every single time. And there's so much of a weight will be lifted off your shoulders, because you don't want to be that person that's just working and working and working, and you're wondering why it's not turning over. And it's all because, look, you're just saying the wrong thing to the wrong person on the wrong platform. That's it. You just got to shift your focus and give it to the right person on the right platform where they're going to listen to it. So, with all that being said, oh, go ahead. If you have a thought, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe the statement of like all press is good press, but there's
Right.
better ways to do press.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people would be surprised at how easy it is to get started at getting in the media and landing some interviews, especially on the local level. Like those guys are hungry for stories. They are
Mm-hmm.
reporting on a cat in a tree. So if you have a story that they want to listen to, and you need to frame yourself in the right way, but how are you giving back to the community as a business? There's so many angles, and that is a part of it. Is how are you framing your message? But getting out there is powerful, and it's just something you need to do if you want to move forward. It's really a great tool to separate yourself from everybody else.
Yeah, and if you believe in your brand, you're gonna figure it out. If you do believe in it, you will pay the money. All right. I don't care if you actually believe. Now, if it's some hobby or something you want to just kind of do for fun, all right. But if you actually believe it's the work that you do and you have something that you can serve people with, you're going to find a way to come up with the money and get the message right, because it's going to be burning inside of you to where if you don't do it, then you'll feel like you're done. If you don't get it done, then you'll start to feel this tug like, man, I wonder if I could have done this or could have did that better. And that's a very important aspect to it too. So I I saw that, I'm not sure if is it a new software that you, because I want to know like what's the best way for people to get in touch with you now. I'm not sure if you're running a campaign or if you're like have a, because when I was looking at your email, I was like, is that like a new campaign? So I want to kind of give you the platform a little bit to tell people what's the best way to reach out to you now. And then what sort of the projects you're working on in the future.
You can definitely find us all over the place on
Yeah.
social. I'm a Austin Holmes pretty much everywhere. My wife is either Heather DeSantis or Heather Holmes, depending on platform, or the Heather Holmes. She has a little tougher time with the whole name change thing.
Okay.
Uh, the the primary way to find us is publicityforgood.com,
Hmm.
and you can definitely get updates through that on all that we have going on. And we have a bunch of free resources. Like, this isn't to plug anything. Like, we
Right.
have a minimum kind of revenue client that we want to work with.
Hmm.
And so we will totally give everything away before that.
Hmm.
Um, we want to help people. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I definitely appreciate you coming on. I do want to be very respectful of your time. And one of the thing I do to close out all the shows, Austin, is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back a kid from Jacksonville, just a kid from Jacksonville. You're out there, you're playing ball with your boys. I mean, obviously you don't know Tim Tebow is going to be who Tim Tebow is. You're just out there playing ball, man. And I want you to pretend that that young man, that young Florida boy, has come into the Zoom room. Just give him some words of encouragement, words about life, and we'll officially close.
oh, I started thinking about football and I got totally thrown off. Oh, I'm supposed to be wise in this moment. I think being intentional, thinking through what you want to do, not just going with the flow,
Yeah,
but thinking through, all right, this is cheesy, but where do you want to be 5 years from now? Where do you want to be 10 years from now?
yeah.
And I'll share a huge one for me was being a dad. And so that was one that carried through. And now we have two kids, another on the way. So we're excited about that.
Oh man,
But
congrats, man.
yeah, figuring out what you want and
Mhm,
then taking that and looking at reality. Hey,
mhm.
what's it actually going to take to get here? Because you can say you want $100 million business, but if you're not willing to do the work to get there, then
Mhm.
do you actually want it?
Right.
So a great quote that I've used for a long, long time is people do what they want.
And it's straight as simple. It's what you want, and one of the things again that really did attract me to your title was publicity for good. And money is only going to give you the ability to be exactly who you are and do exactly what you want. So lean into the good parts of you, lean into the parts that you know are good, and that should be how you aspire to make your money. And I love how you mentioned, look, being a dad, sometimes just being a dad is enough. That's enough. It's enough for you to have the drive. It's enough for you to wake
We
up in the morning, make your calls, get reach out. Like all of that stuff could be enough. You don't have to be a damn, a famous millionaire. I actually don't have to be Tim Tebow, to be honest. So I know we started talking about it, but you just got to be exactly the parts that you know are good. So again, appreciate your time, man. Appreciate you coming on. Keep doing great work. Definitely gonna keep up with your journey and all that. Fellow
thank you.
teammate. Oh, good. You have some?
No, I was just saying thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.